Hello and welcome to the Claret Blue podcast, sponsored by NordVPN. For the best discount code available, there is a link in the description. I'm your host for this one, Dan Rolinson, joined by John Townley, filming at a slightly unusual hour for us, John. It's Sunday evening, but we're both busy on Monday, though this is Monday as this video comes out, this podcast. How's things, John? You okay? Unfamiliar background. Where are you?
I'm in Leipzig. I arrived on Sunday evening. Busy day, obviously, travelling around. I got a connecting flight as usual. I don't know why I keep getting connecting flights, obviously because it's cheaper. But it really does take it out. Like, the whole day is just travelling. Obviously, I'm enjoying myself still.
Yeah, Champions League football on Tuesday evening, Leipzig away, which is what we're going to be talking about predominantly, I think, in this podcast, and a little bit about almost like the state of the Premier League, I suppose, at the moment, and just kind of the general assessment of Villa so far. I don't want this to be a review of Southampton. I don't really even want it to be a Q&A because some of the questions, I did ask for some, by the way, for those that are wondering, where's my question? A lot of it was about, like, what about this against Southampton? What about that? Now, I don't really want to go too deeply. It's done. We've done a post-match. We play Leipzig tomorrow. I want to look forward rather than look back. If we'd have beat Tottenham 5-0 on Saturday, I'm sure we'd still be talking about it. But, it was 1-0 Southampton. I feel like we've said everything that needs to be said. Even you, John, have had your little walk and talk video go out as well. But for the audio listeners, do you want to give a bit of a summary to what you saw on Saturday?
Yeah, my summary of it was dreadful conditions for a football match. Villa didn't need to get out of first gear, And Southampton, I'm pretty certain, are going to go down. But Villa got the job done, and that is genuinely all I cared about, really. I think it's one of those games where people can look at it because it's come after a long spell of or a long winless run. I know we beat Brentford, but we're in the same period, it feels like.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I think people can look at it and think, oh, we didn't play well, though. Did we deserve to win? And Southampton didn't have a shot on target, and we could have scored 4. So it's probably as bad as we could have played, really. And for that reason, I'm happy just to win the match. What I would say is that we have big tests coming up until the turn of the year. Not that Leicester City, after the turn of the year, isn't a big test, but you get what I'm saying. We have Forest away, big match. Obviously Leipzig, of course, that's why I'm here. Man City, Newcastle, Brighton, all those games are against teams that are in and around us. We've won 2 games on the bounce, but I feel like I'm always quite balanced with things. And, I said it before, and it was fact, obviously, that Southampton and Brentford are the 2 worst travelling teams in the league. To be fair, Brentford have played some really good sides, including Villa, in terms of going to places. Villa have lost like one of their last 13 league games now. So Villa Park's always going to be a tough place to come under Unai Emery. But yeah, you got to take it balanced. 2 wins, but also wins that I'd expect us to get. And I think we said if we didn't get 6 points, it would be disappointing, no matter how we did it, whether we come back from 5 goals down in the last 2 minutes. You got to win those matches, and we did. So that's fine. I've always said I'm not going to judge us properly until after the new year in terms of the league position. I still don't think we've seen our best 11, and I still don't think Unai knows what it is, or maybe he has an idea, but for different reasons, injury, the need for rotation, we haven't quite seen it yet. So you can look at that as a positive spin and say, well, we should be improving from here. Or you can look at it as more of like a negative point of view of, well, that doesn't bode well for the upcoming games, and are other teams, more kind of prepared than us to attack the kind of final 2/3 of the season. But I would suggest, looking at Tottenham, just lost to Chelsea. I didn't see the game, but we know what Tottenham are like under Ange. They will play some games and be fantastic. Other games they'll be really bad. Like, they have a high ceiling and a really low floor. That's something that Villa don't have. I think we're pretty, I don't want to say consistent because we're not, or we haven't been yet, but we've shown that we can be. Chelsea this season are doing really well. But then other teams like Newcastle doing worse than Villa, United doing worse than Villa, West Ham doing worse than Villa, Brighton doing well. So you can kind of go through different teams, but if you kind of level it all out and look at the whole picture, Villa are in a pretty strong position considering the rest of the table. So that's my kind of my opening, really.
Everything we said before Southampton and even a little bit before Brentford from you and I was just, we want 6 points. Anything less than that we won't be happy with it. We got the job done. We've got 6 points. I just park that to one side and say, right, the next 4 games, or 5 if you include Leipzig, really important in their own little way. Obviously, Forest is the team that we're closest to. Man City at home is kind of the big showpiece before Christmas. Can we repeat what we did last year? Newcastle away on Boxing Day gives me the frights a little bit because we don't have a great record against St James's, and what a kind of good statement that would be to go there, win, extend that gap a little bit further between the two sides. And then Brighton to end the year as well, obviously doing really well this season. So, yes, we've done the job we had to do against Southampton and Brentford, but we're absolutely going to have to be better to get anything from any of those 4 games or 5 games with Leipzig as well. So, Leipzig have lost all 5 games in the Champions League, by the way, and we'll talk about that more specifically in a second. But I'm not kind of just like, oh, well, we've beat the crap teams. We're going to go to pot now because we're playing good ones. We can still put something, put a run here together and get a decent amount of points over the next 4 or 5 games. So absolutely work to do, but we've done the job that we wanted and we needed to do. We had to get 6 points, and not to kind of keep track of where we are, but just to feel that kind of positivity of like, okay, that was the minimum expectation and we've done it. Forest didn't get 6 points this week. Tottenham didn't. Man United didn't. Newcastle didn't. We've just done our job and we put it to one side and move forward. If we lose the next 4, obviously it's a totally different story, but I don't think that'll happen. Brighton
go and lose 2 points at the end of their game against Leicester. Like, I feel like us as fans, we're kind of in a bubble of Villa, which is fine because I don't want to be anywhere else. But other fans have more frustration than us. Newcastle don't have Europe and they're failing. Tottenham have Europe, but it's not the Champions League and they're failing based on their objective. Man United the same. And those teams, if we finish above them, that's a good season because I think we'll be able to finish above Forest, and I think they'll probably fade away a bit. Maybe they beat us at the weekend, but I think we'll be able to finish above them. Same for Brighton. They're a good side, of course. I think they'll be in and around where we are. But if we finish above, so the teams I mentioned there, United, Newcastle and Tottenham, or one of the other teams I've mentioned, will be playing in European football next season. And for me, that is all I care about. Like, genuinely, I know a lot of fans, we need Champions League again. Yeah, it'd be great if we do. But right now, to be in the mix for European football, in March, which, feels like a long time away, but it will come quickly. It's already nearly mid-December. And we've played lots of games, even though it doesn't feel like it, to me anyway. But the point I'm trying to make is, as long as we're in the mix, we can put a run together at the end of the season and maybe finish 5th, and maybe that's Champions League. Like, we just don't know. So I'm not having any sort of negative thoughts, genuinely. I know we've just had a long and winless run and that we've won 2 games, but my thought on it all is to kind of take each game as it comes and see where we end up after that point, if that makes sense. We could have failed to win both games this week, which would have been bad, and we'd still be above the teams that I've mentioned there, which says a lot. And we've already, despite our bad form in the last 2 months, gained ground on those teams, which feels mental. So I'm fine with where we are, and these games will test us, but I'm also not going to be, I don't know quite to put it, but if we win 2 of the next 4 and get 6 points, that's no crisis either. I know there was a lot of talk about that before we went into this week's or last week's game, shall I say now. Those 2 matches, we couldn't have been in a crisis because we have the 2 games coming up, and we won the first one 3-1 comfortably. Could have scored more goals. Same for the Southampton match. Fine. The next games, we can't be so kind of quite sure how to explain it, but we obviously have a bias to Villa. The teams we're playing will also be thinking, oh, we can beat Villa and that we're as good as them. That doesn't mean that obviously Villa are going to have the right to just beat them. We have to earn that right, and we'll see what we can do. But if we come out of it with 2 wins, a draw and 2 defeats, okay, I think that's probably a strong outcome, to be honest, because again, we'll probably be around the top 6 places come the start of the new year, which is absolutely sound for me. So yeah, taking it all on a game-by-game basis, but I understand the kind of thoughts and feelings of, we should be beating Southampton by more, or we made it difficult for ourselves again. I understand those feelings, but I think that's because of what's happened before. Granted, Villa do need to improve, but you can only beat what's in front of you. And Saturday was always going to be a difficult game because of those conditions for both sides. It was never going to be a fantastic game. But yeah, going to Forest, City, Newcastle, we're going to have to play well to get something out of it. Yeah. So if we get a win and a draw and whatever it may be, strong positive results, no one can say anything about performances for me, because you have to play well to get something against those sides. You can probably be in first gear against Southampton, as we were. Brentford, we played better, but still, they haven't travelled well, and we were 3-0 up at half time. So the second half wasn't going to be as good as the first. So yeah, no negativity from me. I'm pretty positive about where we are at the moment.
Yeah, it's an interesting kind of debate, I suppose, about performances over results. And I mean, Tottenham are the example that springs to mind here with Postecoglou, that, you know, we just want to be entertainers. I quite like winning games, to be honest, even if we don't particularly play well sometimes. Villa have played a lot better than they did against Southampton this season and not won. What do you get for that? Yes, we didn't play great against Southampton, and yes, we should be scoring more goals at home against bottom of the league, but you don't get more points if you win 4-0 when you win 1-0. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be kind of like too almost disrespectful. People are kind of concerned about performances, and I get it, but I think at this stage of the season specifically, a little bit, when you can kind of make the point that all the way through the season you want to kind of just win, but around Christmas and towards the back end of the season when it's really kind of like relentless, it's just about winning. And that kind of breeds performances. You saw the confidence change a little bit after we scored against Brentford, and players started to ping it a little bit. If Villa can win a couple of games, we'll start to just play better naturally in other games anyway. So I'm not massively concerned that Southampton wasn't this kind of free-flowing attacking football and we won 5-0, like my preview prediction. We don't get bonus points for scoring 5 goals. We get exactly the same as winning 1-0 in a scrappy game when we should have done better. So I'm not concerned about that. I'd rather win than be entertaining, and maybe we'll lose the odd game 4-3 or we'll draw 3-3 or whatever. Like a 1-0 win, fine, let's just move on.
Yeah, and I think this season it just feels different. Firstly, from a Villa perspective of last season, we were very consistent at the start and we got lots of wins. We were 4th and 3rd for most of it, and that's kind of, I feel, our expectation now of, we need to be there, else, you know, we're not going to be near it in March because we'll continue to play poorly, when we could just flip what we did last season and end very well instead of ending poorly last season and starting quite slow. Best start for 25 years, but I understand the performance levels. And again, the best 11, I don't really know what that is, and that's not criticism. I just don't think we've been able to find that out. I just feel like we can only improve from here, really, in terms of performances. Yes, injuries are a bit frustrating at the moment. We'll find out what the Bailey how his condition is, which is a blow for Villa. Ramsey's, you know, still out. Onana's just returned, but you always feel like there's another injury around the corner for Villa, which is never a good thing. Obviously, I feel like we have squad depth, but different players in those positions, if that makes sense. Like Philip Jane coming in for Bailey, for me that doesn't work, and Onana coming in for Kamara, for me that doesn't work. As you know, the same thing. Kamara isn't injured, by the way. I'm just saying, in terms of your positions on the pitch. Yeah, it's a different season as well because those middling clubs, I think I said before, we all know that they are more competitive now, and the likes of Fulham, Bournemouth, Brentford, they're Brighton as well, really. I suppose you could call them a middling club. They are, well, they've displaced some of the big six in terms of those top 7 positions right now. Forest are obviously doing really well too. So we'll see how the table and how the land lies essentially after the new year and into January. That's when kind of pay attention to it. And if Forest are still there, okay, maybe they could be European contenders. Sorry, but there's about 8 games until I, you know, look at it.
Even then, lows can change from like the end of January to May. That's still like, I don't know, a third of the season or something. It's still a long way.
Let's just take rough with the smooth at the moment. We're not playing as well as we probably could. That's probably
a lot of teams aren't.
Exactly. And where are we? We're at 6th, I think, a few points off 4th. And I don't think 4th will get this season, if I'm being perfectly honest, because I think 4th looks quite strong. I know the points difference between City and Brighton, for example, or Villa and Forest isn't a lot, but I'm not going to sit here and say City are going to fall out of the top 4. But we are in a very strong position considering who I thought our kind of opponents would be for a top 5 finish. If you kind of look at the table now, and again, I've just said all about, don't bother looking at it yet, but Forest, you'd expect them to maybe drop off a bit. Brighton have struggled for consistency recently, and then obviously we're there, and we're between those 2 teams. So if you kind of, I don't have the bookies odds, but if you had the bookies odds, I presume we're probably what the kind of, not the favourites to finish 5th, but in terms of that pack of clubs, we'd be there, wouldn't we? Obviously,
yeah, you just thought so.
A few points above United by a few points. So yeah, happy with that. I would have taken that at this point in the season.
But also, like you say, when the games are every 3 days, if we lose 2 in a row and Man United win 2 in a row, that 6-point gap is gone instantly. So it's not kind of, I don't want to get too carried away either way that we're ahead of Newcastle by 5 or 6 points. Well, that could be come Christmas Eve. That could be totally different because of the amount of games that are played.
It's just
we played Newcastle obviously as well.
Yeah, I just get the feeling that some people are kind of questioning: are we actually this, or should we be there? And that's valid. But everyone else is asking that same question, apart from Liverpool and Chelsea fans. Everyone else is scrambling around for answers, apart from those teams that keep saying have done better than expected, but maybe they now come down after February or whatever it may be. But I just feel like we have that kind of sticking power of, we've been here before, we know what it takes, over 70 plus games with the 4th best team in the league. We know what it's about. And yes, we're a bit different this season, but here we are. We haven't been perfect at all, but we're 5th. And we're very close to 4th. 6th, sorry, I keep saying 5th. So, yeah, I'm content with what we're doing.
If you had to pick one word to describe the Premier League this season, what would you go for?
I'm torn between fascinating and intriguing. Do you know what I mean? Because in my head, I was thinking we would be around this position, but we'd have Spurs beneath us and then Man United, and it would be Newcastle. But a lot of those, I keep saying it, those sides, have impressed. And I'm intrigued to find out whether they're going to stay there or not. For now, we have to just continue to prove ourselves. And as I said, the rest of this month, we have a big opportunity to do that. It's a bit worrying that we're kind of approaching it with question marks, and I don't think we feel too confident in ourselves. But this is now the time for us to find that consistency and build on what we've just done. If we lose 2 games in a row, there will be, those concerns will come back, and it'll be okay. Well, we're going to have to validate ourselves elsewhere in the campaign, essentially. But it'd be nice to end this calendar year, and what a year it's been for the club, on a high. And as I said, if we're in the top 6 at the start of the new year, I think that's a fantastic start to the season.
We said ages ago, well, not ages ago, like within the last maybe 6 to 8 weeks, that the way we were talking about Villa, words like crisis and we need to review this and change this or whatever. If you took away all the context of knowing where Villa were and what they were achieving in terms of, we were in the top 8 of the Champions League at certain points, we were in the top 5 or 6 of the Premier League at certain points, you would think, well, the things that we're talking about, Villa must be in trouble. They must be in the bottom 6 or something. And that still kind of feels the same to me a little bit, that it's really kind of up and down. I think the word you'd go with to describe the Premier League as a very obvious one is unpredictable this season, of clubs being in different positions than you would expect. I'm just going to go through this weekend's fixtures. Apart from, you could probably make a case for that of the 8 games that have been played so far, Sunday and Saturday, you can make a case that only Villa's is really the predictable result, that you'd think Villa are going to beat Southampton. Obviously, different fans would feel differently, but Man United losing to Forest at home, Palace drawing to Man City, Brentford beating Newcastle, Chelsea possibly to go away to Spurs and win, but Spurs are 2 up in that game. Leicester drawing with Brighton, they were 2 up in that game. Ipswich as well, Bournemouth beating them. Yeah, maybe you would expect that, but that took till the 95th minute for Bournemouth to get their winner. Fulham drawing to Arsenal. So you can make a case that even in one round of fixtures, there's so many unpredictable kind of storylines happening, or last-minute goals here and there, that makes everyone feel differently about their club's position. That I don't know how to feel about Villa. I kind of feel pretty good about it, but then I see other people saying, "Oh, but we're not this or we're not that," and I think, yeah, but no one else is doing anything really.
We're comparing ourselves to other teams and looking at ignore it. Like, we're doing our own thing, and we're 6th. I keep thinking
we've not been very good, have we? But we're 6th, and we've got a fighting chance of finishing in the top 8 of the Champions League. Like, that's good, isn't it?
Yeah, and again, when you contextualise it with the sides struggling, and I just said there, don't compare us. But if you want to do that, then look at the other teams that are struggling. And Southampton, by the way, nearly got something out of Liverpool and should have beat Brighton away from home. And we're kind of questioning, we only beat them 1-0, should have been 4, but that's not good enough. In those games, sometimes to get out with a win. We didn't do it last season against Sheffield United. We blew it. Yeah. We dropped 2 points of what would have been with spent Christmas at the top of the table. Sorry. So I'm more than happy to leave Villa Park with 3 points against the Southampton side, who, yes, have been struggling, but also will now have to be fighting tooth and nail to stay in the division. Yeah, absolutely a game that we had to win, and everyone predicted us to win, and we did win. So that's fine. And I always go off what Unai Emery says, and his kind of mannerisms after games. I've been with him for a season and a half now, nearly. And I can read him, not quite, I don't know him, but do you know what I mean? You can read someone quite well when you're in their company twice a week for a long time. And after the Southampton game, he was happy. Like I'm not going to go as far as say delighted, but to win 2 games in a row in the Premier League, it doesn't matter who they're against. The Villa are now back on track, and genuinely, like, he was upbeat, he was smiling, he was beaming. Like, I think he knows after all that experience that he has that in those matches you just need to get over the line. If you're not going to score 4 goals and it's not to be, and you don't take your chances, how many times have Villa been punished down the other end? Bournemouth 3 weeks ago, and I'm not taking comparisons between Bournemouth and Southampton, who's the better team. It's a Premier League match. Southampton aren't a great side, but they've earned the right to be in the division, and they didn't cause us problems, granted, but you've just got to do a job, and the job we did. So we're 5 points out of 5th or 4th in March. I'd snap your hands off for it. Like, what's wrong with that?
I agreed.
That gives us an opportunity, and I don't expect us to be much lower than that in terms of points. So when I said snap your hand off, I don't know if I would, but do you get my point?
Yeah.
You would consider that, absolutely.
I'm not going to ask you for a points prediction for the next 4 Premier League games, though I might do that when we do the Forest preview at the back end of the week. When we talk about like clubs not being in positions we would expect, Villa to be in 6th, yeah, fine. But you would have thought Spurs, Man United and Newcastle are probably going to be the clubs kind of sandwiching us in that position. Mm-hmm. For it to be the likes of Brentford, Bournemouth, Nottingham Forest doing probably beyond everybody's expectations. I think Forest fans potentially would have maybe picked themselves to, can we get into the top half? But to be 5th at this stage of the season, I think would even be beyond their expectations as well. Why do you think we say, and I've said it as well, why do you think we say things like, well, they'll fall off, they won't be there come the end of the season? Is that a quality thing? Is it an experience thing?
Yeah, a bit of both, really. I think it's different with Villa. I think people appreciated us more and backed us to finish 4th. I mean, to be fair, there were calls from some pundits to say, Villa will drop off, but drop off to 5th, maybe. It wasn't a Forest situation now where you're thinking they could finish mid-table because they've started well. Nuno is a good manager, but he's not Unai Emery. Forest, I think, are very dependent on Chris Wood, who I've always said is an underrated striker. Granted, I didn't think he'd be this hot in form. And there are some players there who I think are probably overperforming, and that's no disrespect. They absolutely deserve to be where they are, but it's another thing doing it over the course of the campaign. So I think everybody would suggest that Forest will fall off a little bit. They could finish 8th or 7th. I don't know. That would be a fantastic campaign for them, but they're in 5th at the moment, aren't they? So yeah, I just think last season it was different for Villa. We were competing with Tottenham and everyone presumed Tottenham would get us in the end. But I think, if you really looked at it and analysed it, I think there was every chance that, how do I put it? I think that was disrespectful, essentially. I don't think I'm being disrespectful to Forest, who survived relegation 2 years in a row, to now, they're going to stay in 6th or whatever. So,
I mean, occasionally clubs do that, but when there's, like I said, Bournemouth up there as well, you'd think that not all... What was it, 3 or 4 clubs there? Brentford, Bournemouth. They're all going to do it. One of them might stay up there, but when you see like runs of form and stuff, Forest are kind of doing maybe the best of their abilities at the moment, and someone like a Man United aren't. At some stage, Forest you would expect to go through some kind of sticky patch as well and drop off, whereas Man United will click into form and they'll replace them in that top 7 or whatever, potentially. Man United maybe not with the best example of that, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. But this is a problem, I think, for some clubs who won't find consistency, and I think we will be able to do that over the course of the season. But this is why I'm thinking Ange could be under serious threat to lose his job here, because
I don't think he'll be there by the end of the year.
It's not just Nottingham Forest who have put consistent run of form together. It is, as you say, Brentford, it's Fulham, it's Bournemouth. There's 4 or 5 clubs there. I'm going to include Brighton as well. That's a lot of traffic. It's not just 2 clubs. Sometimes one club breaks it like Villa did and then Newcastle did. There's a lot of clubs there who I don't think will break into the European positions, but they'll be there. They're going to fight for it, so maybe they will. But do you get what I'm saying? If you underperform and you can't find your consistency, you could be finishing in the bottom half this season, because the level is really improved, and we are over a third of the way through the season, which isn't a lot to kind of look at the table just yet, but it's enough to suggest that those teams are strong. We're not talking like the Kazoo title charge that us and Everton had after like 4 games or whatever it was a couple of seasons ago. Well, more than that now. This is quite a sustained period of time, and they keep getting results, those sides. So it will be an issue. It will be an issue for Villa as well if we don't get the results that we need.
Yeah.
In the coming weeks. But yeah, it's a completely different thing doing it after March or even up until March. So their squad depth is also obviously less than what Villa's would be. So a few injuries here and there could affect those teams more than obviously us, Spurs, United.
John, you text me earlier saying I've got a story, but I'm going to save it for the podcast. And I love that because I don't want to hear it on WhatsApp. I want to react now. We're having a conversation. So what's this story? What's happened this afternoon?
Probably the most surreal flight that I've taken. I mean, I haven't taken too many. So yeah, I had a connecting flight. So I went into Amsterdam. So I'm listening to some music, and I see the pilot, the captain, walk out the cockpit, and he's walking down the aisle, and I'm thinking, and I'm quite like a nervous flyer.
You're thinking, who's flying the plane?
That came into my head, but also like, what's happening? Like, is there an issue? My heart rate then went even more when he said, Mr. Townley, and I thought, what's happened here? Am I either in trouble or I'm going to
you've got to parachute your way down to Berlin?
Yeah, something's gone wrong here. Swiftly followed by up the Villa, watch the podcast. I'm a big Villa fan. Completely like stunned. Like people will come up to you and talk to you, and you'd expect it because there'll be Villa fans in Leipzig.
Yeah.
Different bits and bobs, obviously around Villa Park, because that's where Aston Villa fans watch their football team. But yeah, 30,000, whatever it is, miles in the sky. I don't know, is that right? Feet. Yeah. Can you do that again? Because I really sound rich.
No, I'm including that.
You're taking that out.
Where were you flying to? Mars? You can do it again if you want, but I'm including the original.
No, you can't.
I am. 30,000 miles is equivalent to approximately 48,000 kilometers. To put this into perspective, it's 1.2 times the circumference of the Earth and a little over 1.2 times the distance from the Earth to the Moon. He's on the moon to see Leipzig. I think you got to the wrong place, mate.
We're going around the moon. I don't expect that at all. It was the captain. When you start the flight and they say, "Oh, welcome on board," and we're flying to this place.
Captain speaking. We're flying to Berlin. The local time is 05:03.
Yeah, Captain Phillips, who also speaks really good Dutch. I think he was Dutch.
Was it Tom Hanks?
What? What are you talking about?
God, the reference that John Townley has never seen a Tom Hanks film has ruined that joke, but hopefully everyone else enjoyed it. Tom Hanks plays a character called Captain Phillips in a film. He's a boat captain, though, not a pilot.
Okay. I know people are probably thinking this idiot.
Kendrick would have laughed so hard at that. I'm going to have to about it.
The captain of the plane, the pilot, like just strolling up to you and being like, "Oh, hi, John."
Townley as well.
I was, of course. I was genuinely like blown away. Like,
yeah. Really, when you said I've got a story, I thought you might say this would have been crazy as well, but more believable that you were like sat next to somebody and they were listening to the podcast. Yeah. That would have been like, wow, that's mad. For the captain to come out and say, Mr. Townley, I presume that you're a Villa fan is excellent.
Townley, I was like,
reckon he's like flicked through the flight log and gone, Mr. John Townley. Could it be? Could it be him?
Be no other way. Name's Graham, so shout out to Graham. Got a photo of him as well. I said straight away, I was like, "Can we have a photo?"
Yeah, that is crazy. That is probably. I don't think there will ever be like I'm a podcaster and I got recognised. I don't think there'll be a story top that. Yeah,
just bizarre, really bizarre.
I think we're gonna have to take a little break to compose ourselves. I don't know how we're gonna get on with the rest of the podcast of talking about football after that crazy story. So thank you for sharing it. We'll be back in a sec, I guess. Okay, let's talk Champions League for 5 or 10 minutes or so. I'm not going to go so far as to call this a RB Leipzig preview, but this is what we've got. I actually was in contact with a kind of like Leipzig podcaster at one stage a few weeks ago, but we couldn't arrange a time that worked for both of us to do like a joint preview. How do we approach this game, John? Leipzig losing every game in the Champions League so far. How does that make you feel?
I don't think it helps Villa, if I'm being perfectly honest, because if you look at the games that they've played Leipzig, very good sides. Atletico Madrid, Inter, Liverpool.
Lost to Celtic, didn't they?
They lost to, everyone will be saying that. Everyone will be saying that. As soon as I said they played good sides, I thought, they lost to Celtic. Yeah, that is one side. But I think they've probably had the hardest run up until now, and Villa's obviously a difficult game as well, considering we're ninth in the table. But their run has been particularly difficult, and I'm not surprised that they've lost. I'm surprised they've lost all the games, but I'm not shocked they lost against the teams that I've just said there. And there was another one that is a good side too. Yeah, it's not as if we're coming up against a team like Young Boys. I know we already have, but a side like that who have lost all of the games because you thought they'd lose all the games. We're coming up against a team who are better than what the table suggests. We know that. And what I would say is they're not a great side. They have injuries. I think there's about 7 players that will be missing the game, fewer young players. There'll be some team news that I'll bring out from their press conference to kind of clarify that, but they missed 7 players from the last game, and I don't think any of them will be returning. And there was pressure on the manager as well. They lost 5-1 to Wolfsburg a couple of weeks ago, and that really put him under pressure. But then they've won 2 games since then against Frankfurt in the Cup, German Cup, and then Holstein Kiel, I think is how you say their name, who I don't think a great side. That was away from home, 2-0. So similar to Villa, really, in terms of that a really poor run of form and won the last 2 games, and that's the same as Villa. So yeah, I feel like we're probably evenly matched, and there's obviously the subplot of Luis Openda and Diego Carlos not liking each other from pre-season. Don't know if you remember that. That would be interesting, and for that reason, I think I wouldn't play Carlos anyway. I mean, I'd play Cash. I'd play Cash ahead of Carlos and then move Konsa across anyway. But that isn't something that I want to see it kind of dragged into, because Carlos lost his head badly in the pre-season game. So we could do without that.
Yeah.
And then that's the game that matters.
I don't want to say it, but I'm going to. Every game is difficult in the Champions League. Doesn't really matter who you play unless it is Young Boys. We've already done that. I don't quite know what to expect, to be honest. I feel like we obviously made changes against Southampton, knowing that we can probably still get through this with changes, and we did. We didn't play well, as we said, but we won. It is what it is. That was unusual, wasn't it, for Luca Dean not to start and Ollie Watkins not to start? You'd expect that was with one eye on Tuesday, you would assume.
And the weekend and the games that have been before, yeah.
Yeah, an opportunity. As risky as it is, we think we can get through Southampton by making changes. It doesn't always work. Palace in the Cup, you can make changes, lose a game, and then lose the one that you were kind of had one eye on. But they didn't do that. They won. Hopefully, they go and do the same on Tuesday as well, and they win. And everyone's had a bit of rest. I don't know what kind of game to expect. Leipzig could be quite good, and we aren't very good, and they win, or we pile on the misery and it's 6 defeats in a row for Leipzig, and they've probably got no chance of getting through to even the playoff round. So I hope it's the latter. What kind of 11 would you be going for? I think Cash straight in there with Konsa back inside makes sense, but is it Torres? Is it Mings? Is it Maatsen? Is it Dean? Like, there is selection kind of choices here.
Yeah, I'd give Mings another start. I think he deserves that. I think I said on the preview that I'd expect Torres to come back into the team, because Mings just come back from a long-term injury. I don't think we had to play him twice in the space of days, but I think he deserves to start in this match. I think Duran and Watkins could play together, to be honest, and I'm not saying that that's something that I think works, but in terms of what Unai is going to do, I presume Bailey's going to be injured. Again, a press conference later today, so we'll kind of get a time frame on that, hopefully an accurate one. But Duran
after Southampton, it might be like 1 or 2 weeks or something.
Well, 1 or 2 or 3. So
okay.
I just feel like Duran and Watkins, this could be an opportunity to do it. I feel like Unai, obviously, firstly, I think we have to go to win the game, because we've got nothing to lose. The one thing that we have to lose is a automatic place into the 16. But if we don't get it, I'm not going to be crying about it at all. It's 2 more Champions League games, and I know that people will be thinking, yeah, but we could do without them. Happy to play Champions League football whenever we get it. So, yeah, I'm fine with that. Obviously, I'd rather go through automatically, because that's more beneficial. But I feel like Unai kind of experimented a little bit against them. Not experimented, but changed the whole back 4. Constant moving over, didn't come out of the team, but different position. Yeah. And Duran starting, I wasn't surprised at. But yeah, as I get kind of sidetracked there, but Bailey not being there means that he has 2 options, or not 2 options, but the main option there would just be to bring in Philogene, play him on the right, and then you have Rodgers, Watkins, or Duran, and McGinn on the left. So essentially 1 change to that structure. But I don't think you can take Duran out of the team at the moment, because I just feel like He's got his goal. He started. He did well. Taking him out of the team again to start Watkins. I don't know. I just feel like this is something that Unai wants to do. He wants to play those two strikers up front because he knows Duran deserves to be playing games. This just feels like a good opportunity because if we don't win the game, and this is Unai, by the way, I'm not talking about fans or what we think, Unai won't be, he's not going to be mad about it. Do you know what I mean? I feel like this is a good opportunity for him to test something if he wants to, and this feels like the chance to do it because Bailey isn't playing. I think if he was fit Bailey, and maybe he is, I don't think he will be, but if he is, then I think it'll be the same structure. But this now feels like he's been given an opportunity to do something different, and I think he'll probably take that. So
yeah, I think that makes sense.
I wouldn't be surprised if they start together. All of that could go out the window, and he plays Philogene on the right. But I almost want to see Duran and Watkins play up front, even though I don't think it works, but I want to see us try to make it work. And this feels like a good game to do it. A lot of fans will be saying, no, we need to win the game to get automatic qualification. I get that. But I'm just talking from Unai's point of view. If we don't get top 8, we don't get top 8. He'll move on and we'll play the 2 qualification games in the playoffs. But he'd rather try something and it maybe fail than do something that we already know doesn't particularly work well and fail anyway. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think Duran scoring changes the perspective a little bit, doesn't it? Because Watkins didn't play against Southampton to start on Tuesday. No doubt Watkins starts again. But Duran kind of has to start because he scored and he played well. So you can't keep chopping and changing. And it actually isn't fair on Duran as much as like football is very ruthless. Like you could just go, I gave you Southampton, you scored, but I need Watkins for Tuesday. So you're back on the bench, so deal with it. But at some stage, you do have to just like say, go on, then go and give it a go. Which I know it's a lot more professional than just go on, lads, go and have a kick about. But you're right. I think Bailey kind of forces the situation a little bit that you have Duran playing off Watkins or vice versa. McGinn on one side, Rodgers on the other, Tielemans and Kamara in the middle.
I see what you're saying there, Dan. But I think even if Duran didn't score, I think I'd rather see them two playing together to see how it looks against a good opposition. This was a pot 1 team, supposedly our hardest away match, and Villa's away form in Europe has been pretty poor under Emery. So in general, I think this is a good test for us. I'm excited to see what we can do and how we compete. But I've seen, and I don't mean this to be harsh, but I've seen enough from Philogene on the right that I'm not keen on it. And him playing against Leipzig, I don't think I'm going to see anything different to what I've seen before. And that's not a slight on him. He prefers and he is better on the left anyway. I feel like it's a bit predictable what he does on the right. And again, that's nothing on him because he doesn't have an overlapping right back because of the way that we play. Cash can do that, but that affects the other side, on the left side. And that's where we like to hold the width with Dean or Maatsen. So I'd like to see us just go with 2 up front and see how we can compete against the side who are strong, good team. But also in a game that, and this isn't my opinion, in a game that I think Unai thinks is important, but not as important as a Premier League match at home that is against anyone that isn't Southampton, really, because obviously it's around. But you get my point. This feels like a game where if Villa were to lose or draw, fans won't be happy, and rightly so, because we want to win every game. But Unai will be then just going straight to Forest. And
you've kind of got that safety net of the top 24, haven't you? And it's 2 more games to play. You would back yourself to beat, if Villa finish high up in that bracket, you'd expect them to beat that 2-legged playoff team anyway, potentially. I
just feel like Unai needs to. He's desperately trying to find a solution to play these 2 up front. Not desperately, but he knows that he wants to do it, and he's going to have very few opportunities to do it in a season. If he doesn't do it against Leipzig when Bailey's not available, I'm not sure where in the campaign he's going to have that opportunity again. Unless it's Celtic at home, if nothing's riding on the game, but I don't think that's the case.
That's what I was going to say.
So it's going to be 3 games, I think.
The only thing I would counter your Philogene point with, and I absolutely agree with what you've said, that he's not been good enough when he's played this season, apart from Bayern Munich. I think everything we've seen from Watkins and Duran playing together doesn't work either. But you're allowing that. Do you know what I mean? But
that's because we have 2 top strikers, and we know that both of them. I've seen a lot of criticism of Watkins, and I've said it a long time. I don't buy it. He's scoring, when he starts, he's scored 1 in every 2 games, which is the same ratio as he had last season when he bagged 19. So, he's a top forward. Could be England's number 9 in the World Cup. And he's with Duran, one of the most promising forwards in the world. Like, those 2 players, you have to try and get the best out of them in the team. Philogene is still learning his trade in the Premier League.
But can you just go, it's a bit Steve Bruce, isn't it? Go, they're both good players, let's try and get them in together. if they don't work together, if they don't
This is
have
what
the
Emery
chemistry to
says.
play together.
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying, Dan. We're trying to find out if we can. We've given it a few opportunities, but 3 games isn't enough. You know, you've got to give it a proper go. I'm not saying there's one more game and then I'll make my decision, but there's very few opportunities to do this.
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
We're in a very strong position where we have 2 top forwards who can both score goals, both create chances, both be a nuisance, all of those things. Other teams don't have that. And Emery said himself he wants to find a way to play them both. So I'm saying, like, I don't think it has worked, and I don't think the balance is particularly good. And I don't think I would do it if I was picking the team tomorrow. But from Unai's perspective, he wants to do it. He knows that he has to play Duran in matches because he deserves to. He also has Watkins, who is a top forward. He either does that or he plays Philogene, who he knows himself, and Philogene will be aware that he's got a lot of learning to do and to improve. He's been bought as a player who can compete but ultimately improve in a few years. There's not pressure on him to firstly start Philogene or for Philogene to become a player where he's as good as Diaby. I don't think anyone expected that. It's a £13 million player compared to a £50 million sale in Diaby. People can't expect them to be the same level. But I also think adding to that, Bailey and his function in the side, that's not something that Philogene can do at the moment, and maybe he can never do because he's just stylistically different player. Duran and Watkins is a completely different situation. We just don't know how that's going to look, or we haven't had enough sample size on it yet. And there's more of a reason to do it because of the level that they are and what could be the possibility there is what I'm trying to get at. It's a long way of saying I think Unai just needs to or he wants to give it a go. And I wouldn't be surprised. After all of this, he probably won't do it. But I just feel like there's games come around and you get the kind of feeling that, it's an opportunity to do something a bit different. And this feels like it. Again, if we play the normal team against Leipzig and we get a draw or we lose, obviously we haven't gained anything apart from maybe a point. If we do it and we play well with Duran and Watkins, we get more from it, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I feel like
if you don't get the result, you get knowledge.
I can't believe I'm saying that we're playing in the Champions League and I'm trying to experiment, but that's kind of where I'm at.
The press conference is later on Monday for those that are listening. So if you're listening to this first thing, you don't know either. If you listen to this after Monday, you might know that Duran's injured or something anyway. So this whole point of the podcast might be totally irrelevant. Just on that, I'm just going to run through an 11 and then I want to ask you one final question before we wrap up. Martinez in goal, Cash right back, Konsa, Mings, Dean, Amara, Kanana, oh God, Kamara and Tielemans. Yep. McGinn one side, Rodgers the other, Duran and Watkins. That's the team we think we kind of stumbled upon in this discussion.
Yeah, it could be something, but that is what I think Unai could do.
Here's an experiment for you, something that I've seen in the comments quite a lot actually over the last few weeks. Ollie Watkins on the left.
No.
Thoughts?
He's one of the best strikers in the Premier League. Why push him on the left? No, not for me.
All right, I'll play devil's advocate then for the people that do think that. I'm with you, by the way. I agree. He's a striker. He's scoring 1 in 2.
Could you imagine this time?
Not to leave him be, but kind of like that's his job. Yeah. He scored lots of goals last year. He's not doing very well this year in terms of chances. I think is the argument. Like, would Duran be better? Would Duran score some of the chances Watkins gets? Right. So maybe Watkins becomes the worker on the left side rather than the guy in the middle.
Why didn't Duran get those chances then?
What do you mean?
Why was it that Watkins got the chances and Duran didn't? And I think it's too easy to say, oh, Southampton were tired or space is opened up. You mean Watkins is creating the chances, like he's getting himself in those positions? Watkins is getting these chances. There's a reason why Watkins has missed the most. I know this is going to sound bad. There's a reason why he's missed the most big chances in the league. And that
he should be playing left wing, mate. That's why.
Most big chances, huh?
Because he should be playing left wing. That's why. He's in the wrong position.
No. What I'm saying is he's missing these big chances, but he's getting the big chances. And he's scored 7 goals in 14 league starts, if memory serves me correct. So we've got a striker that's going to get chances and is going to score 1 in 2, but we want to put him on the left wing. Doesn't add up to me. Is that just a way, though, of getting... I can't even get through this without laughing. It's not my opinion. But it gets Duran into the side, gives Rodgers a rest. All right, so out of possession, how does that look? I don't know. I'm just asking the question for people that do think this. For me, it doesn't work. He was a winger. Yeah, before he started scoring goals and doing Emery, one of the best tacticians in world football, who trusts him. with everything.
I know you don't get loads of questions at a presser. Can you ask Emery later? Could Watkins play left wing?
No, he will say you don't know any. You don't have any good ball knowledge. No, I don't know. Just not for me. We go around in circles all the time, and in a few games time, we'll get 2 more goals to win us a game, and no one will talk about it. Then when he misses one, it's just So I'm kind of sick of talking about Watkins and missed chances for 2 reasons: because I want him to take them, but also because of the consequence of it. But there's a lot to be said about him getting in those positions and having the opportunities. Duran takes his opportunities, but has less of them than Watkins. And I'm not trying to say that means that he's better or worse or whatever it may be, but there's definitely something to be said that Watkins gets chances, is always playing on the shoulder, running in behind, creating space for others. It's not as simple as him taking all those opportunities that he gets. If he did, he'd probably be playing for, I was about to say Real Madrid, but Mbappe's not doing very well. So doesn't always prove that the best player in the world fits there. But you get what I'm trying to say.
Okay, that's absolutely fair enough. Hopefully that's answered that question for those that are asking it. One final thing to end, and we'll be quick with this because we've done a bigger show than I thought, actually. I didn't think we'd get this much out of this one. Score prediction. We don't track them for the Champions League, so we don't have to write them down or anything. Just want to get your thoughts on how you see it going. What's your gut feeling?
I think probably a draw.
I think that as well.
Again, our record away from home in Europe isn't particularly good. Young boys, we won, but asterisks on that one for me. In the Conference League, we didn't do particularly well away from home, and we lost to Bruges, complete freak of a goal, but we didn't play well at all.
Still lost.
Yeah, but this is a good side, Leipzig, and I know they're not. To be honest, even if we won the game, I still think some people will be saying, but this isn't, like playing Bayern away, or it's not really a pot 1 team. And I understand that they're probably the worst of the pot 1 sides, but we're still going away from home, and it would be a big step for us to win against Leipzig, a team who are absolutely going to be scrapping for a win. So if we can come out of it with a win, that'll give us really good confidence. Because for the players as well, they'll know that when they go on a plane and fly to a different country and stay over and then play a football match, they don't tend to do particularly well. I'm breaking it down like that because that's how it must feel to do something different but not be successful with it. Do you know what I mean? So like mentally to kind of get over that hurdle of winning at a big team away from home. Have Villa done that in Europe? I don't think they have. Won at Alkmaar, but Alkmaar aren't a particularly good side. So
you can't really compare the Conference League games with the Champions League anyway, just because of the opposition largely. Obviously young boys was red. But
lose to draw to Zrinski and fail to beat Bruges, and lose to Olympiacos, draw to Ajax. That's probably the thing we've done. We've gone to a big club but poor side, and we didn't win.
Lille on penalties.
Yeah, and even that we lost the match. So
I don't know that though, because we won the tie. If you want to put it that way.
No, but yes, but in terms
I know what you're saying. We lost the 90 minutes, but we won on the day and we celebrated, and there's pictures of the players celebrating, so we won.
Yeah, we won the tie, but we lost.
No, I just don't like that. It's stupid. It's stupid. I don't care. The game's not over, is it? You won on penalties. You won. You were as the outcome of that fixture. You were the winner.
No, I get it.
You lost tonight. I hate that thing. It's the same with Man City last year. They haven't lost for how many games in a row? Or did they win the Champions League then? Did they? Because they lost. They didn't lose in 90 minutes. Exactly. They lost on penalties. They lost.
Like having a go here.
No, but I hate that. It's so reductive.
I'm only saying it in the context of what Villa have done. Villa didn't even play well against Lille, though. That's kind of what I'm trying to get.
I know.
They lost the game, but equally, you would categorise it as fuel to suggest that they haven't done well. If they played well but narrowly lost in extra time or whatever, I wouldn't talk about it. But they didn't play well, and they were 2-0 down until the 80th minute, or whatever it was. So that adds to Villa haven't done particularly well away from home.
Yeah. But we didn't lose against Lille because we lost in 9 minutes because we won the game and we went through to the next round.
Yeah, but we definitely didn't win or draw in 9 minutes either. So
yeah, true. All right. 2-2. Anyway, if you're interested in my prediction for Leipzig, I think a draw. We can't win every game. If you did the stupid thing of would you rather win this one or Forest, I'd rather beat Forest.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let us know in the comments whether you'd rather beat Leipzig or Forest, and comment on anything else that we've discussed throughout this podcast. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. A bit of a weird dynamic this on a Sunday night, but hopefully if you're listening on Monday at work or in the gym or wherever, you've enjoyed our little chat. Leipzig post-match will be Tuesday, very late. We've also got a bonus episode with Colin Abbott coming as well, so keep your eyes out or your ears peeled. Your eyes peeled or your ears for that? Whatever. Keep your ears peeled. Ugh, that sounds horrible. Thank you very much for listening to or watching this episode of the Claret Blue podcast. Thank you, John Townley, and we'll see you on Tuesday. Bye, everyone.